Hello students, in this video we will start with our chapter number 4, that is structure of atom. In this chapter we'll basically study about the different subatomic particles which are present in an atom, that is electron, proton and neutron. Then we'll discuss about atomic mass, atomic number, valency, electronic configuration, isotopes and isobars. So let's start with the chapter. Now in our previous chapter, that is chapter number 3, we have studied about the Dalton's atomic theory. In that, Dalton has explained that atom is the smallest indivisible and indestructible particle of an element. That means we cannot further divide atom into its subparticles. So this was considered as the smallest indivisible particle of an element. But later on, at the end of 19th century, different experiments were conducted, and from that it was proved that this theory was wrong. We can divide atom into its constituent particles. So about those particles we'll study in this chapter. So let's start. Now, from the experiments conducted around the end of the 19th century, it was explained that atom, it consists of subatomic particles, that is electron, proton and neutron, and these subatomic particles, they are known as the elementary fundamental particles because they are the necessary constituents of an atom. Now, how the scientists reached to this conclusion, let's start with that then. First is your charged particles and matter. Different activities were conducted. Now first activity was that plastic comb rubbed on dry hair. Now this activity we all have tried also. If you will rub a plastic comb on dry hair, then that comb will start to attract the pieces of paper. In the similar way, if you take a glass rod and rub it with a silk cloth, then if you bring this glass rod near to an inflated balloon, so inflammations will be observed in that balloon. So from these activities, it was concluded that on rubbing two objects together, they become electrically charged. That something happens when you rub two objects. So might be that they are getting charged, then only a plastic comb attracts pieces of paper. We all know that opposite charges attract each other. So it was concluded that some different charges are present in them. Now the question arises that from where these charges came. So the answer to that was that might be something is there in an atom which is having charge. Then discoveries started related to it, that what basically is inside an atom. Next is discovery of electron. Now how we come to know about the presence of electron in an atom, that was conducted with the help of an experiment that was known as cathode ray experiment. In the beginning, this experiment was carried out by a scientist whose name was William Crookes, and later on J.J. Thomson specified the observations based on this experiment and conducted his own experiment also, which led to the discovery of electron. So let's start with it. In cathode ray tube experiment, what the scientist did, he took a discharge tube. Discharge tube, basically a glass tube whose length is approximately 60 centimeter. So such type of a tube we generally call it as discharge tube. Now he took two metal rods. One he connected to the negative terminal of the battery, and the other rod he connected to the positive terminal of the battery. The rod which was connected to negative terminal of the battery is known as cathode, and the rod which is connected to positive terminal of the battery is anode. Now air was present inside this discharge tube. We can take any other gas also, but at that time it was air only. If we took another gas, so depending on that the color of observation would vary, but this time we are taking it as gas, air, and air was at low pressure. So he took a vacuum pump also. With the help of this outlet, he adjusted to a vacuum pump so as to adjust the pressure inside this discharge tube. Now what he did, what was observed, when he connected it to the battery, so in the beginning, when the pressure inside this discharge tube or the pressure of air inside this discharge tube was maintained to be at 1 atmosphere. So at that time no electrical conductivity was observed. electricity doesn't flow from this cathode from anode to cathode. Nothing was observed at that time. The reason behind that was because the gases or air at low pressure, the gases or air at low pressure, they are poor conductor of electricity. So what was done? He further reduced the pressure to 1 mm of Hg. At that time, what was observed? Some pink glow was observed in the air inside this discharge tube. Then later on, he further reduced the pressure to 0.01 mm of Hg. At that time, what was observed? Ki this side, that is the wall behind this anode or the wall opposite to cathode, starts to glow with a green color. What the scientist did, he coated this glass discharge tube, this discharge tube with the zinc sulfide. So zinc sulfide, what happened in this, when the high energy particles strike on a layer of zinc sulfide, so it starts to glow. So when the pressure was further reduced to 0.01 mm of Hg, at that time green color glow was observed at the wall behind this anode. So what was concluded from that? Ki might be something was ejected by this cathode which was moving towards anode, because of which these particles when strike this opposite layer, so it starts to glow. Now what they decided, ki if it is positive, so we know that the opposite charges attract each other. So if something is being attracted towards the positive, that is the anode, so might be their nature was negative. So they named it as cathode rays, because they thought that these rays or these particles, what type of particles were they? Negative. So these negatively charged particles might be coming from this cathode, and they named them as cathode rays. And later on, these cathode rays were known to be electrons only. Now, from that cathode ray experiment, we can come to know that the negatively charged particles, at that time scientists called them as cathode rays, they found to be the electron only. So later on we call them as electrons. So electrons were basically identified by the scientist whose name was J.J. Thomson, and electrons were the negatively charged particles because they are attracted towards the anode, that is the positive side, so obviously their charge will be negative. And we can represent electron as E with a negative charge. And electrons have negligible mass, so mass of electron was 9.1 into 10 to the power minus 31 kg. Next is canal ray experiment or Goldstein discharge tube experiment. The discovery of cathode rays, what was discovered, that cathode rays were negatively charged rays. Their charge was negative. It was proof that these cathode rays are present inside an atom, or we can say that the negatively charged particle is present inside an atom. But earlier what was known, that atom is electrically neutral. So scientists thought that if atom is electrically neutral and if some negatively charged particles are present inside an atom, so there might be some positively charged particle also. So then experiments related to the discovery of these positively charged particles started. One was that the canal ray experiment. This was conducted by a scientist whose name was Eugen Goldstein. So we can call it as with the name of that scientist also, that Goldstein discharge tube experiment. Now what he thought? He studied the cathode ray tube experiment that we studied before this. So what he studied that cathode ray tube experiment also, and he thought if some particles are emitted by cathode towards anode, they strike on the wall behind it and some glow was observed. So he thought that might be some particles were emitted by anode also, but because of their heavy mass, because of some reason, they were not able to penetrate through that cathode and didn't strike on this wall, hence no color was observed. Then he thought that why let me perforate this cathode. He decided to perforate this cathode. Instead of a solid cathode, he tried to use perforated cathode. Perforated cathode means whichever having holes. So he took that perforated cathode and then conducted the same experiment. So what was observed by Goldstein after this experiment, कि in the beginning to raise some glow was observed at this end also, but using this perforated tube a similar glow was observed at this end also. So he concluded that कि some positively charged particles were emitted by anode also, and he named them as anode rays. And he concluded that if cathode rays, that is the negatively charged particles, are inside an atom, so positively charged particles are also inside an atom, and he called them as anode rays or canal rays or as negative rays also. No, sorry, positive rays. Now, canal ray experiment led to the discovery of proton. Now let's discuss about the properties of proton, as it was clear from the previous experiment that protons are known as canal rays also, anode rays also, and positive rays also. So if we talk about the charge of a proton, so charge of a proton is equal to the charge of electron. That means if a negative charge on an atom is equal to positive charge, then only an atom could be stated as neutral, and that charge later on was calculated to be 1.67 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. This coulomb is the unit for charge. Now if we talk about the mass of a proton, so it was proved that protons are heavy mass particles inside an atom. So their mass was found to be 1.67 into 10 to the power minus 27 kg. If we compare the mass of electron with the mass of a proton, so it was found that the mass of electron was 1 upon 2000 times mass of a proton. So from this we can conclude that how negligible the mass of an electron is there in front of mass of proton. And second thing, if protons were the heavy mass particles inside an atom, so might be they were present in the interior of an atom, that is electrons could be peeled off because electrons lies in the outermost shell. Later on this chapter will study, but proton lies in the interior of an atom, which is quite difficult to peel off from the atom. Next is discovery of neutron. Neutron was a neutral particle which was present inside an atom. That means it was not having any charge. It was discovered by a scientist whose name was Chadwick, James Chadwick. So what he concluded, what was observed, the atomic masses of all elements except hydrogen are much higher than that expected on the basis of presence of electron and proton. Suppose that if you take the example of helium, so we know that the atomic mass of helium is atomic number is 2 and atomic mass is 4. So 2 electrons are present inside an atom and 2 protons are present inside an helium atom. So what was concluded? Before this neutron, what scientists believed that only these particles are present inside an atom. So when their masses were added, and whatever the result they get at the end after adding their masses, that found to be much lesser than the exact mass of this helium atom. So from that, scientists thought that there might be, now though that atom is stable also, electrically stable also, the charge, positive and negative charges on an atom were equal. But they thought that something is there inside an atom which is having mass, but that is neutral in nature. Because if some particle is present, then only we can prove that its mass comes to be same. So from this they concluded that some neutral particles are present inside an atom whose mass is equal to that of a proton. And when we consider that particle also along with it, so the mass that they calculated using these particles comes out to be equal to the exact mass of one helium atom. So from that they prove that yes, neutrons are the neutral particle inside an atom and whose mass is nearly equal to the mass of a proton. Then after the discovery of electrons, protons and neutrons, then experiments started to carried out about the atomic models of an atom. What basically the structure of an atom would look like. So related to that, different models came. So first model was J.J. Thomson model, In this model, J.J. Thomson explained that an atom consists of a positively charged sphere and the electrons are embedded in it. Suppose what he concluded कि a sphere, a positively charged sphere is there, and in which at some specific points negatively charged particles were embedded. He compared this atomic model to the plum pudding or the Christmas pudding. That means if we compare it to a watermelon. So in watermelon, everywhere the red edible part is there, and in between some seeds are embedded. So in the similar way, this red edible part, it indicates to the positively charged particles. That means everywhere positively charged particles were spread, and these seeds, they could be compared to the negatively charged particles or the electrons. So we can compare this model to a watermelon also, but J.J. Thomson compared it to plum pudding. Now, what were the achievements of this model? He proved that atom is electrically neutral. That means the number of electrons inside an atom are equal to the number of protons. Only this thing was specified in this model. His drawback was that the result of experiments carried out by different scientists could not be explained using this model that was given by J.J. Thomson. So this was the major drawback of this model. Next is Rutherford model. Now Rutherford presented a model of an atom based on the experiment that he named it as Rutherford alpha particle scattering experiment. So what he did in this experiment, he took first of all, this experiment is also known as gold foil experiment also. What he did in this experiment, he took alpha particles. Alpha particles are basically the radioactive particles, or we can say that they are the high energy particles which are having a large amount of energy. So he took these alpha particles, and then he took one gold foil also. He made these alpha particles to strike on that gold foil. Now the question arises ki why he took gold foil only. He could have chosen any other metal also, but he took gold foil. The reason for that is because gold is the most malleable metal present. So he took very thin sheet of gold carrying approximately 2000 atoms in it. So what he did in this experiment, he took a circular fluorescent screen. He took a circular fluorescent screen. What is the motto of this fluorescent screen? That means whenever the high energy particles strike on the screen, some scintillations were observed on this screen. Wherever the alpha particle strikes on the screen, at that point some scintillations were observed. So what he did, he took a circular screen. At this end, he took the source of alpha particle. A very small pinhole was present inside in this source, from where the alpha particles could be emitted from that hole. And these alpha particles, they travel in a straight line, and at the mid of the circular fluorescent screen, a gold foil was placed. Whenever these alpha particles strike on this foil, what was observed from this experiment, that most of the particles strike at this portion of this fluorescent screen. That means in this portion of the fluorescent screen, maximum scintillations were observed. So it indicates that most of the particles, they travel undeflected and strike just behind this gold foil. Now, other than these particles, only a few particles were present that strike at some different places in this fluorescent screen. So this concluded that whenever the alpha particles strike on this gold foil, so most of the particles, they travel undeflected. So this was what Rutherford experimented using alpha particle. Now from this alpha particle scattering experiment, Rutherford concluded that if these are the atoms of the gold foils and these rays represents the alpha particles, so most of the rays, they pass straight without deflection from this, and it is only possible whenever if the mass of this complete atom is concentrated at a one point, and that too is very small. Only a few particles that got deflected. Here you can see that if the particle is strike this nucleus of this atom, so only in this case he suffered deflection. So this was explained, this was the conclusion of the alpha particle scattering model. So from this alpha particle scattering model, alpha particle scattering experiment, Rutherford concluded that the atom that consists of a positively charged sphere at the end, at the mid of it, and electron, that is the negatively charged particle, that keep on revolving around this positive sphere of charge in circular orbits. So an atom basically consists of a sphere of positively charged particles, and electron keep on revolving around this positive sphere of charge in circular orbit. So this was the model of atom that was given by Rutherford. But this Rutherford atomic model has drawbacks also. The very first drawback is that it didn't explain about the distribution of electrons around the nucleus. What he concluded, कि electron they keep on revolving around this positive sphere of charge, which he named it as nucleus. That is, electrons are revolving around nucleus, but he didn't explain about the distribution of electron, कि how the electrons will be distributed in these circular orbits. Now the second and the major drawback of this was that the revolution of electron in a circular orbit is not expected to be stable. Now what he explained, the electron will keep on revolving in this circular orbit. We know that whenever a particle revolves in a circular orbit, it loses energy, and when it loses energy, its motion gets accelerated. So if suppose that a particle, electron, is revolving in this orbit, so as it loses energy, its orbit keeps on shrinking. It starts to shrink, and as it shrinks, it follows a spiral path, and finally it falls onto the nucleus. If this is a nucleus and this is the orbit of an electron, so when it revolves, it loses energy and its orbit starts to shrink, and it follows a spiral path, and finally it falls on the nucleus. So this was the major drawback of this Rutherford model. Next is Neil Bohr's model. In this model, Bohr explained that the electron that will revolve around a nucleus, that is the positive sphere of charge, an electron will revolve around this nucleus in a definite circular orbits. Means the orbit of electron will be fixed, that is the path of electron will be fixed, and he called it as orbit or shell or energy level. Then he explained that only some specific orbits are allowed inside an atom. Then he explained that whenever the electron will revolve in this fixed orbits, so it will not radiate energy. The reason is that because the energy level of that particular orbit is fixed, so it need not to radiate energy for that. Whenever the electron, it jumps from higher orbit to a lower orbit, or when it jumps from a lower orbit to higher orbit, either it will gain energy or it will lose energy. That means whenever the electron jumps from higher energy orbit to low energy, so all the time it will lose energy, and when it jumps from low energy level to the high energy level, then it will gain energy from surroundings. Now this is how the atom, the structure of an atom would look like. This is the positive sphere, it represents nucleus, it consists of positively charged particles and neutrons. These are the different fixed shells. He named it as K, L, M and N. These shells are having fixed energy. This shell, which is having minimum level of energy, is known as the ground level or the ground state. And this is the outermost shell, which is having the maximum level of energy, is known as the excited state. That means this level is having minimum energy, and as we move outwards, the energy level of the shell starts to increase. So this is the present day model which we are following, that was given by Neil Bohr. So this was about the first part of the chapter that we discussed here. The remaining topics will cover in our second part. Thank you.